was a precious commodity, one she had taken for granted until it was all she had. Tonight she chased it. She felt as if her lungs could not get enough of it. With each new step, a new shallow breath, and a new resolve to continue filling her chest with the last thing in this world that was free. She knew that if she stopped, the night would end. But she did not want the night to end. The colors were too vivid. First the reds, the piercing reds. They swept out of the night sky in such an instant that she did not have time to witness their origin. But there they were, swirling, brilliant reds that swept her up like she scarcely remembered. Indeed, did she even remember it? Or was this the embodiment of a shadow she always hoped to one day remember? The color floated around her as she ran, keeping up with her, perhaps even lagging back a little so that she could keep up with it. She could not help it. She began to be entranced by its brilliance, though she dared not slow down. She peered into it, trying to imprint upon her memory every detail of its stunning life form. Then suddenly, did it change? The reds were not quite as flowing as they once were. They moved a little more awkwardly. She knew she had seen that movement before, somewhere. Then she remembered, yes, the reds were walking. Alongside her they walked, still dancingly keeping up with her every running stride. Their shapes became more and more human. She recognized one of the colors. He looked into her eyes with a love that said it was already finished. There was nothing she could do to ever spurn that love. Then another color touched her shoulder. She whirled her head around just in time to catch the shape of a life that spoke of a bond with her that nothing but tears could form. In an instant, the motherly shape was gone, but reformed next to the figure on her other side, walking arm in arm with it. She almost stumbled. Something had touched her heels. She turned her head around long enough to see a child following behind her. It was a little girl without colors. She skipped and sauntered without a care in the world, but all the time keeping up with her. She wondered at the child. She wondered at childhood. So happy, so light. All its cares are immediate. There's no sense of that fact that time will one day have its way. No one tells children the truth. From somewhere behind the child, deep in the distance, she thought she saw another red. A different red. But she couldn't be sure. She had to keep her head straight onward, to immerse herself in the air and the night. Nor did she have time to worry about the new color or the child, as the brilliant reds by her side had split into multiple colors, each walking at its own pace somewhere by her side. They were dear to her, some more so than others. All looked at her with varying degrees of loneliness. One in particular, he looked at her with a seriousness and a questioning. His was by far the most tender touch, but not the most knowing. She slowed slightly, gasping for breath as she did. She turned to look at him, but her gaze was interrupted by the new color, now creeping along the horizon next to her. It was a dark color, and threatened to swallow the red she now fought desperately to keep. She reached out for him, but slowly he faded, and slowly the dark approached. She had seen this before. In an instant he was gone, and in his place were two other brilliant reds, one for whom she cared, one with whom she was comfortable. The dark color approached. She tried to outrun it, but it was of no use. It swallowed up the two colors, just as it had swallowed the last. She now saw that it was not a darkness, but a deepness. A deep red that spoke of something she knew all too well. It sent shudders through her life-stained body. The shudders continued as she ran, and continued, until she had unknowingly discovered that she was quite at home with the shudders. She did not mind them. In fact, the deep red had mixed with the brilliant red so much, so that neither color was now better or worse for the mixing, but they were more real. Then just as she was about to acquiesce to the new deep and brilliant red, it suddenly birthed the figure, that she hated. She hated its curves and its smoothness and its beauty. It tore from the rest of the colors, revealing its blackness. And then, in horror, she watched as it reached back into the deep and brilliant red and pulled from it the loving figure. He looked at her as she ran with the same unquenchable love as before. as he faded off into the distance with the beautiful black figure. She ran harder, and at her heels she felt the child again. She turned again to look and now saw a young lady walking warily behind her. She knew that look. The colors had replaced the innocence. She had never been sure which was more desirable, but now she knew that neither could ever coexist peacefully with the other. The deep, brilliant red circled around her and comforted her. It did not split into its native colors, nor would it ever again, and she was grateful. Now there was another color. It crept out from behind her. She turned to look. Were the colors coming from the child? But it was no longer a child or a young lady. It was a young woman. A young woman with a war in her eyes, between childlike hope and the lamentable wisdom of the inevitable. She recognized that look, and she ran faster. But she could not outrun the new color. It surrounded her, and here and there penetrated the deep and brilliant red with its yellow haze. It was a tired color, so tired that it was almost transparent, and blended in with the night in such a way that at times, in her gasping for air, she would inevitably suck in its yellow weariness as well. But she did not mind. A little weariness might even be nice. It made her feel as if her running was accomplishing something. Accomplishment. The red spoke nothing of that. She wondered at her life and for the first time looked upwards. There were no colors to see through, just the night sky.